I got sick and they could not figure out what was wrong with me. The doctors, they thought it was rheumatoid arthritis. They thought it was MS. They thought it was lupus. But I did notice that every time I ate certain foods, the symptoms would be worse. They finally tested me for H. pylori, which is a bacterial infection. And that bacteria basically went into my gut. It damaged my gut. And then they had to give me harsh antibiotics to treat it, to kill it. And then I was like, the symptoms are still here though, doc. What's happening?
Hey, it's your girl Nancy Red, and this is season 4 of Momreneurs, where we celebrate beautiful Black entrepreneurs who are also amazing moms. Every week, I'm chatting with my guests about how they're killing it simultaneously as a business mogul and as a mom. We're listening to their inspiring journeys and incredible advice. Now, 2 decades ago, this week's guest started following her gut, and it has paid off not just in terms of business, but also in terms of health. Johane Filemon has been an Atlanta-based registered dietitian for quite some time. She is also a gut health and anti-inflammatory therapist, and this beautiful woman is here to tell us all about her practice, Wonderfully Nutritious Solutions. And also, she's going to share a little about how she manages all of this while being a wife and a mom of 5 boys. Welcome, Johane.
Thank you for having me, Nancy. I am so happy to be here.
I mean, step one, before we get too far into the business side of things, we always get a little personal. Who in your life puts the mom in your mompreneur? Who is in your 7-person household?
I'm the only girl. There's my husband, and we have 5 boys ranging from ages 14 to 3 years old. And I'm the only girl. It's crazy. You know, people asking me, are you going to try for that girl? And I'll point to number 3, 4, and 5. And I'm like, I tried. And they're all boys.
Well, but you know what? You are raising men who will be value adds to this world, and you will eventually have 5 girls, maybe. Who knows? Who knows what your future holds?
Who knows? We'll see.
Well, one thing is, it's hard enough doing all that you do, but doing it while being a mompreneur is quite impressive. Were you always business oriented? When you were a kid, did you always know you were going to start a business, or was this a whole shock to you?
It was a shock, but then it wasn't, because growing up, I always knew that I wanted to have something where I had control over my hours, my days. You know, I thought I was going to medical school. That was the plan.
Like a good Haitian girl.
Like a good Haitian girl. I'm glad you know. That's the dream of every Haitian parent, is for their child to either be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And, you know, I felt like medicine was for me. I loved medicine. I loved the idea of helping people. And I was drawn to women and children. I thought I was going to be an OBGYN. I thought pediatrics was going to be my thing. I even taught ER at one point, because I interned there in my senior year of high school so that my resume can look good for my college applications. But here I am. I'm nowhere near. I'm not going to say I'm nowhere near, because I'm still in medicine somewhat, but I'm not a medical doctor. And the practice that I've created has allowed me to, you know, have control over my time. Just that, like I dreamt. I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm helping, healing, reversing diseases, and helping people to basically understand what foods their bodies love the most. And so I feel like I've done. I'm close to what I thought was going to happen.
Well, in some ways, you're like a pre-doctor, because explain to our audience what it is that you do. So we all know you see a doctor when you're sick. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes you see people when you're sick, but you often are trying to prevent whatever's happening in the body from getting to the point where they need to see a doctor.
Absolutely. And you're right. So a lot of my patients do come to me from a referral from their physician, because they've already been diagnosed. But there's a lot of them who come to me because they are having symptoms that they have not even associated with inflammation. And that inflammation can present in so many different ways, from I'm always having a headache. Why is my period so bad during my menstrual cycle? Why do I have this brain fog where I can't think? or remember things properly. And then so my job is to help reverse those symptoms before they become disease and, the patient gets diagnosed, because, inflammation as we know it, and many studies have shown us this, leads to disease. And so my job is to stop it before disease actually comes about.
Right. And so in our community in particular, talk to us about why this is so important. It's a culture shift, right? Like it literally requires a lot of unlearning of elements of our culture that are really, really crucial in terms of eating, exercise, stress management, lifestyle, all of the things.
Right, absolutely. In the Black community, the thing is that a lot of, I guess, trauma from the past, from what your parents experienced when it comes to going to a doctor or seeing anyone in the medical field, has prevented us down the line from, if we have a symptom, to go in and find out what's going on before it becomes something that's crazy or irreversible. And I'm not going to say that our cultural foods is what got us here per se. When we think about our traditional foods, foods that was...
No, definitely not. This is very important. There's modern culture and then cultural foods. Like, exactly. So yes, we need to be very clear that at the base of it, our culture, which was stolen from us and it's complicated. That's a whole other podcast. Is very healthy, and you actually are fortunate enough to have Haitian roots and a pipeline to that, to understand that this American SAD diet, the standard American diet that we have adopted, is especially egregious for the Black community. Okay, yes, we're on the same page. Full disclosure, I'm team gut health. Nancy Red is all about that life, so I love this, and I love what you're doing.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I always tell people removing your culture is like removing your identity. And we don't want to do that. We want to rearrange how we eat to make it match what's going on now. Back in the day, we were moving a lot more than we're moving now. We're a little bit more sedentary. And it's not necessarily because we don't want to be moving. It's because the way life is set up. We're working 9 to 5s. We're working 16-hour days. We're drained. We don't have the time to exercise all the time, or get movement throughout the day, every day. And because of that, we can't be having the kind of plates that mama and grandmama used to have or present to us at the kitchen, at the dinner table. We have to rearrange our plates. It can still include a lot of the foods that we are used to in our culture. And so it is really important for us as a Black community, because the risks are always higher for us than any of our counterparts, because we have the lack of knowledge, we have the lack of access, financial capabilities, even systemic issues when it comes to going to the hospital and how they treat us versus how they treat their counterparts. So many things come into play. So it's us as a community, we really have to advocate for ourselves and learn what we need to do to better our future.
Okay, so here we are. This is an issue that now we know a lot about. But when you first started in this world, when you decided to go from being pre-med to being a nutritionist, getting your degree, getting your master's, back then, like over 10 years ago, this wasn't something that people fully understood, would you say?
Yeah, it's really been something that has like blossomed and exploded in the last 15 years, where gut health is the hot topic. We really, we focused on prevention. We didn't really understand the microbiome, at least the popular world did not hear of the microbiome like we're hearing it now. Now it's really the hot topic, where a lot of studies are coming out, helping us to understand that everything is stemming from how our gut is functioning. If your digestive system is not functioning as it should, it starts impacting everything else. So all these conditions that we're being diagnosed with, cancer, diabetes, even heart disease, they're all stemming from how our gut is functioning.
And it starts so young. I mean, as a mother of 5, you see how easily gut health can get imbalanced from day one.
Your gut microbiome, it starts developing from your first day on this earth, your first day in the hospital. So whether you are C-section baby or if you are vaginally birthed, that impacts your gut microbiome. Those who are vaginally birthed are the ones who get that first exposure of their gut micro of those bacteria that starts building their gut microbiome, while those who are C-section babies, that's a little bit delayed for them because they didn't go down the vaginal canal to get that exposure.
What is the difference between what you do and what a doctor does? I think that's because, like, I think that nutrition and gut health is so underplayed. We're quick to go to the doctor. We're quick to go to a specialist. But what you do is kind of more like a medically trained coach. Because I don't want to say coach because that word has been bandied about. But you are a medically trained person who has skills and expertise to really get to the nitty gritty. And how does that happen for someone who's coming to you?
Absolutely. That is a great question. So the difference between us and a medical doctor is that we are nutrition experts. We go through years of nutrition education. Most of us now are having to have our master's because it's a requirement. We have to get board certified in nutrition. We do internships. So we have gone through it when it comes to nutrition education as a registered dietitian nutritionist. And so when people come to me, I'm not prescribing medication to, reverse or to basically put a Band-Aid is what I want to say on the symptoms. What I'm trying to find out is what is the root cause? What started this? And what can we do to reverse it? We know food and what you're eating, the quality of your food influences a lot of the symptoms that you're experiencing. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How are you actually eating? What are you actually eating? Where are you getting your food from? How are you plating your food? Because sometimes we think that we're eating very healthy and all we're eating from, Monday through Friday is something green, something, beige looking and something brown. And that somewhat, it's better than the sad diet, so to speak, but how much of that green are you eating? Can you add other colors to that green? Because that really helps us to incorporate other anti-inflammatory compounds, antioxidants, and fiber, and all the vitamins that we can think of. And then is that the majority of your plate? So that the majority of your plate is not an animal protein or it's not the starch part of your meal, So we have to rearrange our plates. There's so much that goes into it. And that's one of the reasons why I really believe in person-specific therapies because, two people can come to me with the same symptoms and how I go about it is different based on what, is going on with them, their access, for example.
And when did you decide that this was something that you wanted to do independently with your own business, with your own shingle? And was it directly out of school? Was it right after you got your master's, or did you work for a company? Was it motherhood? What spurred you to go off into your own?
So, like I said, I knew I was going to go off on my own eventually, but it happened sooner than later. So it happened maybe 3 or 4 years after finishing, my board exam, passing my board exams and everything. I got sick and they could not figure out what was wrong with me. I was going all over Atlanta trying to figure out what was wrong. The doctors, they thought it was rheumatoid arthritis. They thought it was MS. They thought it was lupus. They tested me for all these things and I was scared. I was like, is there a cancer that, Lord, they can't find it? What is going on? But I did notice that every time I ate certain foods, the symptoms would be worse. And at this point, I was already well into my career. So I was someone that always loved good food, good quality food. So I'm not talking about, consuming foods that were, didn't consist of a lot of nutrients or, the junk food, as we would quote unquote call it. I'm talking about good quality foods that I was eating, but my body did not tolerate it. And so as I was going to these various doctor's offices, they finally tested me for H. pylori, which is a bacterial infection. And that bacteria basically went into my gut. It damaged my gut. It caused all these symptoms. And then they had to give me harsh antibiotics to treat it, to kill it. And then I was like, the symptoms are still here though, doc. What's happening? And then so I started doing research. I was already research minded. So I started doing a lot of research. And that's when I discovered this therapy that you can basically test for the foods that you tolerate well and the foods that are your worst foods at this point in time. And I became my very own first patient. I reversed my symptoms within 14 days. When I went back to my rheumatologist, he was like, "Did the medication I give you work? Because you're doing a lot better." And I was like, "No, doc." Because one, I was breastfeeding, so I wasn't taking a risk to take that medication because he didn't even know if it was going to impact my baby. And so I told him what I did. I basically ate the foods that my body tolerated well, which allowed my whole system to calm down and the inflammation to reduce and allow my gut to heal itself.
That's amazing. And again, it took a while to get there, but once you got there, you realized, okay, this is something I understand and can do. And here you are. How many children did you have at this point?
At that point, I had only 2. I was only a mother of 2.
Only. I love how. And so that's a scary time. You're breastfeeding. You're not at your best as a human being because you're giving your all to these little tiny ones. And you decide this is the time for me to start my own shingle. What was that process like?
So I realized that if I went through this whole process, knowing what I know, being as educated as I am, there has to be other people who are going through the same issues, who are looking for help and cannot find it. So it's kind of like I had my foot in one door and, starting my practice. So I had it, trying to do both at the same time. I was working for a company at the time. And then I started seeing patients on the side whenever I could. And I started to build that little by little. I left working for someone full time. I started doing it part-time clinical work as a contractor while still trying to build my practice. And it really was the pandemic that kind of catapulted me into like, girl, you just going full time into your own stuff. Because I was always afraid. I mean, you have kids, you have a family, you want consistency in your income. And you're afraid that if you go all out, if it was just me and my husband, I could do it and be like, okay, I could sleep on anybody's couch. I can go back home and sleep on my mom's couch if I needed to. But I have kids. I can't afford to just say, hey, take that risk. At least for me, I didn't want to take that big of a risk. But the pandemic allowed me to, we were all home, and it allowed me to focus fully on being private practice and helping as many people as I could. I primarily see a lot of women. Some of them are mothers, some of them are not. And I see some men as well. But, it kind of like I fell into being full time because of the pandemic.
Well, just because also at that point during the pandemic, you had 4 children?
I had 4. They were all at home. I had 4. One of them was an infant. Yeah.
And so one of the things that we love about mompreneurship is the fact that, like you said, that goal you had, because you had been building up to this moment when the rubber hit the road and everybody's at home because we're stuck in the pandemic, you actually were, it was scary, but you were prepared.
It was scary, but I was prepared because I was already doing virtual work. So when everyone was like, what are we going to do? How are we going to see our patients? And I'm like, I've been doing this. I've been virtual for at that point I started 2014. So at that point, it was like 6 years in. I was already virtual. I knew what to do. I had the tools. So it was a little bit, I'm not going to say it was smooth sailing, but it was smoother than a lot of my colleagues.
So now that you are full-fledged, it's been a few years now that you are completely on your own. Talk to us about that trajectory, because you're on your own. In the interim, you had another kid, but you also birthed a bunch of amazing things. You birthed your website, you birthed your book, you birthed your, you have a detox system. I like to call it your hierarchy of hustles. Talk to us about all of the elements of your mompreneurship right now.
Of course. So I don't have a book out yet. I'm still working on that. So in my mompreneurship right now, so I'm running my practice. My practice consists of me seeing patients one-on-one. It also consists of me working with brands behind the scenes, helping them to basically optimize whatever they're doing. Of course, they are food types of brands, so works well, in what I do. And then I'm also working on different products on my own that we're trying to come out with, my husband and I, whole type, cleaner ingredients, so that the consumer feels great when they consume this, and it's not filled with a whole bunch of fillers and we're saying it does this and that, but it doesn't really. So we've been working, I would say, for the last 6 months to a year on this. And hopefully by the end of the year, we're going to have this come out. And then what else am I doing in my practice? The book, I'm working on a book, a couple of books that I'm working on. And, it's kind of like, you have to compartmentalize as a mom. You start working on this, life starts happening. So you have to pause on your business, focus on life, focus on the kids, reverse the system. It's a whole, cycle as a mom or a mompreneur, when we're trying to be successful at what we do.
When you mentioned your husband, there's also that whole component. How has he shaped your mompreneurship? What is the dynamic there? Is he involved? Like you said, he's helping you come up with these things, but he has his own thing going on too.
My husband has really, really been like the person who has pushed me, but he understands when I need, when I feel burned out and I need space, or I need to take a break from focusing too much on the business because something's going on with our kids and the mom guilt is just overwhelming for me. But my husband has always been my support. He helped me build my website. He helped me come up with my business name. He's business minded. He's in corporate America and I'm science minded. So he's the driving force, and he's never made me feel like, you need to be doing something that's bringing, consistent income, especially when I first started and things were like really shaky. So he has really been a support. And I would say as a mom and a mompreneur, we may not always have a significant other, but we need to have that village. We need to set it up, whether it's family, whether it's friends, however it looks like, that village is so important in what we're doing.
Absolutely. And you have to have people to bounce ideas off. You can't come up with your title by yourself. You cannot build a business completely by yourself. Absolutely. What about your children? I see them on social media presenting. They're so beautiful. They look so healthy. They're your best calling cards, if I may say.
Yeah. I mean, my children, they motivate me. They motivate me because I want them to see, growing up, coming here from Haiti, because I was born in Haiti. I came here at around 6 or 7. I think in the schools that I was going to, all I saw was people who didn't look like me, who were in leadership. And so I want my kids to see opposite of that. I want them to see that you can be a leader. You can be successful in whatever you focus on, you work hard at it. And then also I want them to understand that if you are not successful in what you're doing, or if you fail, it's not the end. We don't fail and say, okay, that's it, put it on the shelf, let's, find something else to do. You continue to work at it. And it may eventually not work out at all, but you can't quit, from the first failure that you had. So I'm trying to instill, those values in my children. And they love to see it. I love going. So I went to their school earlier this year and I was doing career day, and my little ones, and you think they're not paying attention, but they were just shouting out like stuff. And I'm like, so you do know a little bit about nutrition. Look at this.
I love that. And also as a sense of duty, because one thing about the work that you do is the rewards are fun, but the process is not. In my household, we had, as you do when you have a teen and a tween, some acne. I personally believe acne is a symptom from within, and I'm sure that and so was it fun having to cut out some favorite foods? Absolutely. And I just said, well, the thing is, you cannot have, like you said, you cannot have it all. You've got to make the choice. Do you want to have clear skin, or do you want to have Takis? I personally would choose the clear skin, because this is not working out for you. You don't want to go places. And and so instilling this in kids at an early age, and now they fully understand. When you know what it feels like to feel good, as mm-hmm. The rest is history. You're just helping people understand where they can be, and it starts with your children. Not only do they understand the type of woman they want to be, they understand how it feels to feel good in their body. A lot of people and a lot of kids, unfortunately, walk around not feeling good because they're not eating what's right for their body.
You are so right. There are a lot of children who are not, and they don't even know the difference because
No, that's all they know.
normal.
And everyone's very busy. No one's
Right.
doing this. A lot of the people who come to you, would you argue 99% of people who come to you have no idea what they're doing to themselves and their family?
Yeah, I would say, I wouldn't say 99. I would say a lot of them, are leaning more toward the holistic side or the functional side of things, and they don't know exactly how to go about it for themselves. But you're right. There are a lot of people, because I do a lot of community work as well, and there are a lot of us in our community. They don't know left from right. They really don't know what real food is. I had someone I was working with who we were talking about making rice, and their rice came from a box. And I was explaining to them, they were trying to make yellow rice. I mean, the yellow rice came from a box, and I was explaining to them how to make it from Whole Foods. And they were like, what?
Can you explain the difference? Even just so, I think a lot of people don't realize that minute rice is messed up, right? Or, and so when you say that, talk to us about what is the difference between the yellow rice that you grew up eating, your husband grew up eating, that you feed your family, that
Yeah.
you explain to your patients, and what they might be incorporating in their daily life.
I love this question because it helps me to go into detail. Okay. So when it comes to the foods that we have access to here in the United States, a lot of them are full of preservatives. And these preservatives, food colorings, gums, they are gut microbiome disruptors. They start messing up our digestive systems, thinning out the lining of our gut, which results in these conditions and symptoms that we experience. And so when we're eating whole foods and we're incorporating whole ingredients and these whole ingredients, they're inclusive of the nutrients that we want to feed ourselves, to feed our bodies, the fiber, the antioxidants, the vitamins, it has all those things in them. And a lot of the times when you see these foods that are ultra processed, it's mimicking something that's naturally occurring, but it's cheaper. It's cheaper to make the cheaper 1 minute rice with yellow food coloring or red food coloring to make the rice yellow. You know what I mean? And if that's what I'm making now, I'm making this for my kids because I learned it from my mom. That's what she taught me. It's kind of like a cycle. And we need to break that cycle. But if you don't know, how are you going to break that cycle?
And that's what you knew from your parents. Your parents did not grow up with the prepackaged food color and rice.
No, they did not. Both my parents were culinary trained. My dad was a French chef. My mom did it for fun after she married my dad. And so I grew up in this household of French cuisine, Haitian cuisine, African cuisine. So it was like a mix of foods. And now I've mixed that with American cuisine because I'm more Americanized than my parents, of course. And so, but that whole food compound, that whole food idea, I've stuck with that. I'm not going to say everything I make is from scratch. I do use some canned items like coconut milk. I use good quality coconut milk because I don't want to, be grating coconut and messing my knuckles up like my parents had me doing when I was younger.
Also, the coconuts are really expensive here. I mean, that's prohibitively expensive.
They can be. They really can be. And so, there's a way about it, to include things that may be a little bit processed.
But you're trying to find the coconut milk that doesn't have the guar, the added preservatives, which is complicated.
You want it to just say coconut. Maybe it can say water in there. You just want it to, we want it to say the food that we're trying to eat.
So the thing about this topic is once you get involved, it's very intoxicating, right? You become addicted to figuring out what foods work for you. And then what's interesting, you become more sensitive. In fact, you can think you've become too sensitive, but actually it's just your body knowing exactly what feels good and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people, once you start eating the foods that your body tolerate well, when you eat something that it does not tolerate, you will know it so fast because the difference is going to be so keen. It's going to pop up. Sometimes it can take up to 2 days for those symptoms to come up. But when you feel it, you're like, hold up, this is not good. This does not feel right. For us in the community, we're always talking about the itis. Like I had the itis. This food was so good because I'm falling asleep. I can't keep my eyes open. It was hitting. But the itis is a sign of inflammation. It's a sign of an intolerance. Your food should not knock you out. It shouldn't make you go to sleep. It shouldn't make you sluggish. So if after that mac and cheese you can't keep your eyes open, you're most likely intolerant to dairy. You may be intolerant to wheat. Who knows? But there's something in there that is causing an issue. And it's not always the macro ingredient. It could be the micro ingredient, which would be our herbs and spices. So we have to take those into consideration when we're talking about, food intolerances.
Okay, I think your cookbook needs to be Fight the Itis.
That is a good title.
I love it.
it.
But also, it's just what you're talking about is very important. And we're becoming more and more interested in this. And a lot of people already are in there. And a lot of moms listening to this might be interested in this as a career for themselves. Because again, you've got 5 kids.
Mhm.
You can do this virtually. You've been doing it virtually for quite some time. Is this a career trajectory you would suggest for a mom? Like starting their
Absolutely.
own wellness, nutritionist business?
Absolutely, especially a minority mom, because we make up only 2%, like 2.3% of the whole field. So we need more. We need more
Wait, what field is that you make up 2.3%?
registered dietitian nutritionists.
Really?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there are so many of us who are nurses, right? And is the trajectory somewhat, is it easier to become an RDN or a nurse, or is it similar?
I would say it's probably easier to become a nurse because with nursing, it's easier to, I'm not going to say it's easier to get into the program, but getting an internship for us is harder. Depending on the state, some states maybe have one or 2 programs. So that makes it harder. And then also your internships may not be paid for. You may have to come out of pocket to pay for it yourself. And so that is like a stumbling block for a lot of us. And then a lot of us don't even know about this field. People get confused between a registered dietitian nutritionist and someone who just calls themselves a nutritionist. They're always like, are you a dietitian or are you a nutritionist? Which one are you? And I'm like, we are the experts in nutrition. If you're talking to a registered dietitian, nutritionist, that they've gone to school, they have all these degrees. Someone who's just calling themselves a nutritionist, you are not sure about that, and you have to dig deeper to find out.
That's very interesting. So this is something you would recommend. What is your advice for people trying to get started, or trying to get their kids started? Because so many of us, we have these teenagers. We're just like, okay, what can you do that facilitates a healthy work-life balance where I can be a wife, I can be a mama, and I can make that money?
Yeah, absolutely. I would get the kids interested in cooking first. Get them in the kitchen and see if they're even interested in being around food, the science of food. All of that comes into play because you can do so much with this. You can work solely in research and development. You could work, in recipe development. You can focus in the clinical side. There's so many things that you can do. So I love getting the kids in the kitchen, not only just to see if they're interested in this field, but also it helps them to understand the foods that they're eating, where it's coming from, taking them shopping and grocery shopping with you so they can see where you're purchasing your food. If you can take them to even a farm, that would help so they can see where food is being grown, what it looks like when it's grown, how it's supposed to look like as opposed to when it's on their plate, you know. And then from there, maybe finding someone. Now with social media, it's easy to find people who are in the field. Maybe if it's your teenager, your 16 or 17-year-old, getting them to shadow someone. I'm always ready and willing to pass it forward to people. I have a lot of mentees that I assist, whether they're in the high school, the bachelor's, or the graduate level. And so if you get them to shadow someone, they can see exactly what that person does. And that person can actually explain to them a little bit better than you can how to go about it. And then the next steps would be finding a school that, is nearby, hopefully a school that can give you the scholarships or give some kind of assistance, because not all of them do, especially when it comes to internships.
So when you look at this and when you look at what you're building, when you look at what you're doing for your family, it's part of your legacy. What does that mean to you? How do you define your legacy as a business owner, a mompreneur, and as a mother and wife?
I want to be able, when I'm not here in this on this earth any longer, for my kids to remember me as someone who was caring, who loved them, who understood that, success is important, but family is even more important. I never want my kids to feel like I'm putting my work and what I do, even in helping other people, ahead of them. I want them to always remember me as someone who, nourished them, who, loved them while still trying to help others and show people that food is medicine, and that, healing our bodies doesn't necessarily have to come from medication or modern medication, understanding that the foods that we're eating can help reverse our body, the symptoms that we're feeling, or it can harm, depending on if you're consuming a lot of the sad diet type foods. So I hope in my legacy speaks that. And I feel like I'm doing that, because when my kids talk about me and I'll hear them, and inside I'm so giddy about it. And but I hear them talk about me, as people who admire me. And I do love that.
That's so important. It's so important.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Okay, now our time's almost up, but before we go, I have to have you participate in my favorite segment, which is called Mompreneurs Manifestation. So I
Okay.
always ask all of our guests, what are you trying to manifest? What are you trying to make happen with your business?
Oh my
And how
goodness.
can we help to bring it into the universe for you?
I have this idea of turning my dad's recipes. I mean, these recipes are now, 50 years old. Um, I want to turn them into a book where I have side by side the original recipe and then a more healthier option if you want to go that route. So when you open a book, you're like, okay, I want to have the traditional one today, or let me have this altered one, or because of the condition I'm trying to manage, I have to have this, other one that she has here. And then I also want to have a book, that helps kids, especially Black boys, to learn how to cook, learn how to be in the kitchen. I feel like we always focus on the girls. We don't focus on the boys. And I want my boys to know how to cook. I need them to leave this house knowing how to take care of themselves and not have to be dependent on anyone else. I want to, help my community however I can. I want to partner with different brands if I can, to help, put me out there, to put me out as a thought leader in this field, so that the message that I have can be broadcasted. I'm only but one little person, so partnering with other people is gonna really help me to do that. There's so many different things, and of course, this product that we're working on. I also have a supplement line. I've brought it out. I had to reel it back in because of lack of funding. But I really believe in good quality supplements. I don't want supplements that have all these added ingredients in them, because oftentimes a person is intolerant to these fillers. And how are we healing with the same thing that's preventing, or causing the symptoms to persist? That doesn't make sense.
I love that. Have you looked into, because capital is an issue that all mompreneurs face. It's a whole thing. It's very stressful. A lot of my mompreneurs really talk about the coaching for impact. Chase, have you looked into that before? It's like a coaching for people who are trying to figure out how to scale up aspects of their business.
With Chase Bank?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I only know this because Vontel Eyewear has done it. Harlem Haberdashery has done it. And so, like, literally it's this through line with a lot of my mompreneurs who are just like, I was having a hard time figuring out capital, yada, yada, yada. And so I'll send you the link to that afterwards, because these are all great ideas, and we can't let capital or 5 kids get in the way of these dreams coming through. Tell everyone where they can find you and your business.
Absolutely. So I am Black Nutritionist Mama on Instagram and on TikTok. And you can always contact me there, DM me. You can always go to my website, JoaneFilemon.com, and you can contact me there as well.
What are the services that you provide at this moment to consumers?
So my main packages that I provide focus on reversing inflammation And that doesn't mean you have to have a diagnosis for that to be something that's valid for you. If you're someone who's trying to optimize your health, because I have a lot of professional athletes who are just trying to optimize their game, I work with them. If you have been feeling poorly and you just can't, everything you do, nothing is working, I'm your person. If you have a diagnosis and you can't figure it out, what to eat, how to reverse, how to manage this condition, I'm your person.
Love it. Well, she's your person, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
And thanks to all of you for watching and listening to Mompreneurs. As a reminder, a brand new episode goes live every Monday on Urban One Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit urban1podcast.com to learn more. That's urban1podcast.com.